Hey guys, I want to welcome you to the weekly Wednesday for the Financial Freedom newsletter, where every week, every Wednesday, we delve into something inspirational, motivational, something excerpt taken from the Financial Freedom weekly newsletter. Wherever you are, if you're listening on Spotify, on iTunes, Google, be sure to click the like, subscribe, share, comment. And without ado, let's get into the show. Hey guys, welcome to this week's podcast episode. I have a really fantastic guest today, Robert Poole. He helps entrepreneurs go from operator to business owner and get free from the day-to-day operations in their business. This is really key concept about being an entrepreneur and business owner, is working on versus working in your business. And I'm really excited about this conversation. So, Robert, welcome.
Well, thank you very much for having me, Dr. Lou. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, all my friends call me Chris, so please do the same.
Okay.
I'm not into titles or, but I thank you. But so tell people about your background, your story, and how you got started.
Yeah, absolutely. To give you the background again, I was an Army officer. I graduated from West Point, went into the Army, and then did a short stint in the Army, and knew that in the long run that wasn't for me, and I wanted to get into business. So when I got out, I got into sales and did a variety of sales jobs for several years, and then I started a B2B marketing company with a business partner of mine, and we kind of went from zero to millions in business about 17 years or so. It's been actually 22 years since we've been in business, and unfortunately my business partner passed away in 2017. I came into work one day and he didn't, and turns out he had a heart issue, and it was one of those times in life where those inflection points where, you have to make some decisions. Realized that for many years, use him as a crutch. One of us would go on vacation while the other one stayed around, and that sort of thing. So I never had to really worry about those things. But suddenly I was in charge of this multi-million-dollar company, not enough time in the day, running around with the proverbial chicken with the head cut off. And I realized I need to make some changes. So I've spent the last several years originally changing my business so that I became unnecessary to the day-to-day operations and could focus on some of the important things and what was important to me personally, and get some of that freedom, and started working with other business owners for the same concept, because I found a lot of my clients were experiencing the same thing, where, entrepreneurs, as you know, we kind of get into this business a lot of times because we don't want to have a boss. We want to have, freedom. And unfortunately, most of the time it ends up being the opposite. And so we've really focused on that. And so that's my current focus, and is helping other business owners make that transition as well.
Yeah, fantastic story. Yeah, I've always been interested in, from firing your job and your boss to changing the source of your income from active work income to passive, more royalty, more scalable income. And so I love this idea. And so one thing he's talking about is most people, they don't have an exit strategy for their business. And when you ask them that, it's like they think about selling their business. But talk about turning your business into a saleable asset.
Yes, and that's it's an interesting point you just made there, that a lot of us don't think about in terms of, well, I don't want to sell my business, right now, or I have no plans to sell my business. But actually it doesn't matter, because there's so many benefits to preparing it as if you were going to sell it that have nothing to do with the actual, opportunity that you did want to sell it. So, I generally work with clients on four areas of the business. Number one is sort of changing your mentality from an operator to an owner. And it takes a lot of things, because as entrepreneurs, we tend to be type A personalities. We want to get things done and have a hard time letting go. And, so we've got to change our mentality, and there's a lot that goes into that. And then, of course, too, you've got to have the right team with you, and building that team, whether you're a solopreneur or you've already got 20 employees, building that team and building people that you can trust, that is almost like family, that in your absence, things are going to be taken care of. and those people take ownership in the company. That's an art in itself, and it took me a very long time to figure that out. And then, of course, you've got to set up processes and automation optimizations. A lot of these days, we talk a lot about AI and everything. That's a big excitement, and all the automations and everything. But behind all that, we have to have processes, because processes are more important than automation. Automation is a tool that helps processes. And again, I discovered that we didn't have those processes in place. And that was something that I really focused on and was life-changing for me. And then finally, you've got to really make sales and marketing one of those things that permeates your whole company. A lot of us owners are like, well, I don't want to be a salesperson or whatever, and that's understandable, but we do. It's one of those things, though, that you are the head of the company, the leader, and you have to be ultimately in charge of growing the company. So you need to have the basic knowledge of, are people doing what they're supposed to be doing, so to speak? You don't have to be a master salesperson, but you need to be able to hire salespeople if that's what you want to do, and understand if they're doing their job right and what's overall strategies and things like that. But more importantly, not just you, but we've changed so that everyone in our company understands basic sales principles, basic marketing things. So, the receptionist that picks up the phone, she knows how to deal with a prospect or a client from a marketing standpoint. She'll know what to, that's not her specialty, but she knows just enough to make a difference. And that way, everybody is on the same page. So if you get those four components right, that allows you to build that asset. Like I said, it's not because you necessarily want to sell, but the company functions better for you. It functions better for any employees you have. They start loving coming to work and being part of something. And, your customers and clients get a much better experience. So, again, it's not about selling necessarily, although that's certainly an option, and you're going to have to do that, all these things if you want to sell. But it's more about what kind of company do you want to be. So that's a long answer, but hopefully that's what you're getting at there.
Yeah. One thing talking about valuations is interesting is why does the value of a business decline substantially if the owner is in operator mode versus owner mode?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a big one. That was one of those wake up calls when my business partner passed away. I'll never forget seeing, we had, as part of the estate planning, we had to have several valuations done of the company for a fair, equitable settlement and everything. And I remember sitting there and the evaluators basically said, well, your company was worth this amount, millions of dollars or whatever, but since there's only one of you now, and if something happens to you, the company pretty much goes under, well, it's worth about a third of what it would be. And so what outside investors and people that are potentially looking at your company, if they view you as integral to the company, and if something were to happen to you, even if you stayed on as an employee of the company in that scenario, and they purchased the company, you're still so important that the company can't function without you. It becomes much less value for an outside investor, versus if we do this right and we set it up, we remove you as the owner as a necessary person just to make it the company to run. It becomes much more valuable, because then it becomes just an asset that is cranking out cash and is predictable over time. It doesn't have that because let's face it, it's a massive risk when you got all your eggs in one basket, so to speak. So that's where the value really gets killed, by not converting yourself into an owner and sticking as an operator.
Yeah, I love that, especially among positions where, for lack of a better term, we like to be in control and put ourselves in there, micromanage. But in the business world, it's kind of, we have to develop systems and automation. I have a question. One thing is talking about this idea of systems, because now with AI here and robotics is coming. In the past, we could automate or we could leverage people and time, but now we have software. And so what is your thoughts on AI, robotics, and systems and automation?
Yes, the way I look at it, and it is very exciting, because we're all super excited to see what AI is going to become in the next few years. I was listening to a guy the other day talking about GPT-4, which we're on now. They said that GPT-5 that's coming out is, just light years ahead of it. So who knows where it's going to go. But I think, it always comes back to humans, what tools allow us to do, like automation, even AI is a tool. It allows us to extend ourselves, to remove some of the things that we shouldn't be focused on, but we tend to focus on. I always use the example of a calculator. We can sit down and do the long math ourselves. We know we can do it, but is that an effective use of our time when we can have a calculator do it? No. And so all these tools that we have, all the automation, everything can save an enormous amount of time. They can do repetitive tasks, but what they do again is free us up to focus on the actual important things. And the important things, as good as AI will get, and well, maybe in 20 years it'll be so good, but in my vision, even AI can only go so far, because you get dreamers and humans that come up with ideas. Try to come up with an AI that comes up with Steve Jobs type of innovation, and that's difficult to do. So really what these tools do is allow us to become even more so owners, the strategists, the dreamers, the creators, the things that, well, quite frankly, that's what we want to be in the first place. So tools don't replace us as much as they allow us to, and they break free from some of those tasks that are that kind of dragging us down, quite frankly. So they release us and give us more freedom. It is kind of my view of the thing.
Yeah, it's interesting because I'm finding myself moving more away from hired manpower to more software automation. But I think the hired manpower in the future is going to oversee the software and systems in place. So they're kind of like a checker, and while the software and automation kind of does the grunt work. Yeah,
and I think the way I look at it is that the important thing, a lot of times we tend to focus on the automation because, let's face it, it's cool. I love it as much as anybody. I'm a tech nerd. The automation shouldn't replace process. Process should come first, and then automation kind of comes in behind and goes, okay, how can we do pieces of this process with automation? Maybe we can do the entire process with it. But the human part of it is the creative part of coming up with the process. Like I said, I think that's where the innovation comes from. So we got to be careful as entrepreneurs, as business owners, not to get wrapped up in the tool itself without forgetting why we're doing what we're doing. So, but you're absolutely right, though.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I can never replace the human element, at least for now. But so one thing is talking about is how do people know whether they're being truly an operator or an owner? Is there a litmus test? How long does it take to create that transition? I'm curious about your insights.
Yeah, it's interesting because that the change from operator to owner is really a spectrum. The way I look at it, there's I basically bought a job on one side as an operator, and a lot of us are in that position initially anyway. And then there's on the opposite end, there's I have complete freedom. I'm almost an investor in the sense that I just check in every few months or something. So it's a process of moving towards that spectrum. The way I look at it, it's kind of like the game of golf. You can never win. All you can do is just get closer. But I would say to reach that, what I would call business owner level, is that, if I was going to throw a litmus test out there, it'd be something like, can you, within a few days notice, go off to Tahiti or something and leave your phone at home, not contact your office and when you come back in a month, is your business still there, for one? Is it, the door's still open? And more importantly, is it thriving? Is it growing without you? That's making the point that we want to make sure that our business eventually has got the right people in place, the right systems in place, the right automation. When we are taken out of the picture, that everything doesn't fall apart. And then more importantly, that things continue to grow. So if you look at it from that standpoint, as far as time, it really, of course, depends on where you're starting. If you're a solopreneur and you're just getting your business starting, it's going to take a little bit longer, but you also have the advantage of not having all kinds of it's easier to turn a speedboat 180 degrees than it is to turn an ocean liner. So if you got no employees and you're starting out, it's a lot easier to make changes quick and easy than if you have 50 employees and all of a sudden you got to make changes there. So, so I would say, for the average business owner that I've been working with, probably, I would say a year to 18 months for a smaller business that might have, 2, 3, 4 employees, something like that. But the biggest thing is that I've found what really drives the time is the commitment on the part of the entrepreneur. Some of us, all of us, I think, have a hard time delegating and getting rid of things and changing that mentality. It's tough. We want to do it right. We want to do it our way because, hey, it's our business. The easier or the quicker that we can let go a little bit and we can start focusing on what I would call owner activities versus, operator activities, the faster that process goes. So a lot of times what motivates people is that, my gosh, I'm working 80 hours a week. I don't even see my family. I feel like I'm going nowhere. Our company's flatlining because I just don't have enough time. That person is usually pretty motivated to get this done quick. Whereas, you're a solopreneur, things are going great. You're making good money. You work, 40, 50 hours a week. You're happy. You're not as motivated. So it may take you a little bit longer. So to answer your question in that sense, I think it really is about motivation is really what drives the time.
Yeah. And how do entrepreneurs get started making this shift? For a lot of people, they've been solopreneurs. I know a lot of, physician practices, they've kind of how did they start removing themselves from the equation?
Yeah, it's of course, like anything, you've got to have a plan, but it really comes down to those 4 areas. And depending on where you start. But to me, the thing that you want to do from the beginning of the business is process is probably the biggest thing, even more so than bringing in a team to help. If you don't have processes to start off with, and more importantly, if you don't have processes that are documented, you're going to have a real hard time growing. So, if let's just say it's just you, and you're like, how do I start? You do certain things over and over and over again. And you do them probably well because that's how you got into the business. But what you need to do is be able to document those things so that you can bring somebody else in and they can learn very, very quickly how to do 90% of what you're doing versus taking 6 months of working with you, so to speak, and following you around. Now, it obviously depends on how technical, the work you're doing and that sort of thing. But I think that's probably the biggest thing is to start with some sort of process oriented where you're looking at, okay, how do I optimize our sales process? How do I set it up? How do I sit down? What happens when, let's say most of your sales come from referrals. What happens when that person first calls you? What do you do next? And you create those steps and you document that, and which is not fun, as entrepreneurs, we're busy, positions in particular, you don't have time to sit around. So a lot of times, what we've done in our company works very effectively is, depends again on the job, but let's just say it's an administrative type of thing. Like we had an instance where a gal she was a very technical type of thing, and it wasn't a technical skill that you would put up a job posting for, and there's a gazillion of them out there. It was data analysis, but it was very specific to our company. And so what we did, because we said, she's like, how do I document this? This is, it's overwhelming. And so what we did is we found a sort of documenting specialist, and I apologize, I've forgotten the title of her job, but basically she was a contractor that came in and she had this person screen record what she was doing, just turn on the recorder and do it throughout the day. And she was practiced in making policies and training manuals and things like that. And so she could just take that work that person was doing, even though that person couldn't explain everything. And they were able to turn that around and put it into sort of very easy to learn tutorials and training and that sort of thing. And it wasn't that expensive, but but like that. And the reason we did this is because this person was leaving the company and we didn't want that knowledge to leave with her. So when we brought in the person that was her replacement, in the past, it would have taken literally a year for that person to get up to speed on all this stuff. she was good in a month. And it was because of this documentation process. So, if a physician has, let's say their physician assistant, I'm sure they've got processes and things that they do, on a daily basis, how they do things. And what a lot of us end up doing is, if we're going to hire somebody new, we bring in and we have them shadow the other person, so to speak, And unfortunately, that just takes forever sometimes. The process is probably the easiest way to, again, it doesn't, but sometimes where we get paid the big bucks in business is by doing the unexciting, boring things that are not real flashy. But that's probably the number one thing I would start with.
Yeah, I love that. One thing, well, the other questions, it's really interesting is just kind of finding ways to just like remove yourself, free up your time, and whether you can hire somebody or find other solutions, training as well. The other question is because there's ESOPs, there's like employee stock ownership plans. So for business owners to get their employees vested and invested in the business so they don't quit and just run away. And what is the ideal role for employees? Should they be just employee, or they should think of it as ownership? I'm a big fan of Apple, Amazon, all these different products. Tell us more.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is an excellent point, Chris, because that was one of the things that I missed for many years. My attitude around in the military was kind of hardcore, and you pay them enough and money is all that matters to it, though. Survey after survey, you'll see it. Things like, are they making a difference? Are they getting fulfillment out of their job? Do they enjoy who they're working with? All those types of things. They had a idea of how to create that until I went through that whole idea, that whole situation with my business partner. And I realized it really is about culture. Like you mentioned, big companies like Amazon and Apple have a certain culture to them. And I always, it's a pet peeve of mine that, when I start to hear what I would call corporatenese, lots of big words and ways of saying absolutely nothing by, so I always blew off like cultures. Oh, that's one of those fluffy things that doesn't matter. But I realized, though, that it actually does matter. And it's not just for large, corporations. It's for two-person operations. And because culture is about the unwritten rules that we all have, that a group always has, unwritten rules. If you, on the weekends where I live in Arizona, there's a lot of people who are, bike riders, and so there's groups of these people, cycling, and, they're all dressed the same. They all got the little skinny shorts on, they all got the helmet, but those people are all, they've got their own internal group rules. And, that's an example. So what we found is that if those rules are there, but if we don't think about them, it's just like in a sales script. If you don't think about what you're saying and plan it in advance, you're going to get in trouble. So what we started doing is we sat down with our company and everybody had input, and we created literally a list of, how we think, how we do things. We would start, even things like, we don't tolerate any kind of, sexual harassment or whatever, or, we like to have fun and don't take things too seriously, whatever, so we're just brainstorming rules, so to speak. And we finally came up with, I think it's maybe 12 different things that we all kind of agreed on. It's like, that's us, and we've taken it so far as when we bring in a new hire, in the interview process, we hand them this list of, here's what, our group, our culture is all about. Make sure you're comfortable with this. It doesn't mean it's not good or bad. It just means that's who we are. And so you want to fit into that. And I can't tell you what a difference that's made in the morale, in people sticking with us, when we've been through tough times or tough situations. In the past, if somebody was just there for the money, boom, they're out of there. It's created an environment where we're a family, and outside of work, people are loyal and doing things for each other. Nobody's clocking out right on the dot. They're getting here early and staying late. Our average tenure at our company is now over 5 years for an employee, and it's because of this shift in culture. And I can just say, because it was a stark difference before and after, because I know what it's like to have churn with employees and coming and going, and not only how expensive that is, but it's not fun. And so focusing on culture, recognizing what it is, everybody being on the same page creates that loyalty and creates that environment that we all want to be part of, So I would say culture is probably the number one thing that you want to work on.
I love that. And then there's a great quote that says, become an owner, become an investor, invest in, like, for example, if you work at Apple, you can buy their shares, or if you frequent Starbucks, buy their shares, Disney, these types of things. Become a owner and not a consumer. It's been same thing with the business, what you want to invest in there. So how can people contact you, follow you, reach out to you, and check out your work?
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate that. I'm on all the social media platforms, most of them under the Robert Poole, Poole with an E on the end. And my YouTube channel's got 40 or 50 videos on different topics for small business owners on there right now, and I crank those videos out. And I also wanted to make a special offer to your audience. I was thinking about it before the show, and I do group coaching, and I do a limited individual coaching, but since I only have so much time, as you know, but I'd like to offer the first 3 people that contact our office, complimentary 30-minute session, and we can talk about some of the stuff, where you are in your business, and what's it going to take to get you out of there and get that freedom and all the other benefits that we talked about. So if you want to take those ideas and run with them, great. If you want my help in implementing, we can talk about that, but certainly not a sales presentation or anything like that. So, but you can reach us also, our website, Total Business. But so I'm out there to be more than willing to help any of your audience. You're my people, so to speak. So I'd love to speak with anybody.
Yeah, I know a lot of doctors, professionals would be interested in learning how to become an owner as opposed to operator. And let's thank Robert for coming onto the show, dropping nuggets of wisdom. All of his resources will be in the links and show notes. And with that, thanks so much for coming onto the podcast.
Great. Thank you, Chris. Pleasure.
I hope you really enjoyed that wonderful, inspirational, motivational piece. Again, wherever you are listening, if you liked it, be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe. We're on everywhere: Spotify, iTunes, Google, Amazon, Audible. And without much ado, be sure to thank this show's sponsors, and we'll see you next week.